Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harry Richman.
It isn't beauty, and it isn't her figure, and it isn't her intelligence. It's the, should I say, it's the emotional feeling that she can convey and portray to you from her heart. That is the girl. And those are the girls I am very happy to say I spent my millions on.
Telescope. Brought to you by General Motors of Canada, makers of Canada's most popular cars and trucks, and Frigidaire appliances.
Harry Richman pounded piano in a saloon in Cincinnati for $6 a week at the age of 11. At 25, he played for Mae West. He sang in the early days of radio and hit the big time as a nightclub entertainer in the mid-1920s. A handsome, brassy troubadour who loved every delightful moment in the spotlight. Among his fans were Al Capone and George VI. Harry Richman had mansions, cars, yachts, and girls enough for a dozen lesser men. He also found time and the necessary $100-odd thousand to make aviation history. But in the 1940s, as stars must, Richman's star began to fade. Today, at 70, he's remembered only by old-timers. He sits at home in Santa Monica, surrounded by his scrapbooks and his sheet music, and strains to catch the fading echoes of his fabulous heyday. Harry Richman owned 8 planes. Harry Richman bought Clara Bow a gold-plated $28,000 car. When Harry Richman got married, he had 40 best men. Women were crazy about him. Men and women everywhere were crazy about his songs and his shows. Harry Richman, the puttin' on the Ritz man, walking his baby back home on the sunny side of the street right after this message.
Anything that you say, but baby, come on and say it again.
Harry Richman's youth is long gone now, and the girls are gone, and most of the money, and a lot of the friends, and the fame too, really. People still sing his songs, but without knowing whose songs they are.
Do you remember me? What do you do? Do you remember?
Richard Gaiman for Telescope visits the old troubadour at his home in Santa Monica.
Do you remember me?
Don't hesitate, or it may be too late, so come on, let's go. Let's go. Today is the day you must be on your way, and I mean today. I mean today and not tomorrow. Let's go. Now is the time, and we all got a time for traveling. Slow. Right.
Do you remember?
We'll put up a fight.
This is 30 years ago. A Hollywood hit entitled The Music Goes Round and
Up
Round.
and away. We'll go. Here are the tickets. Here we are. That's the way. Get aboard. Here comes the parade now. I just want to say, if you won't ride.
It's said that Chevalier copied Richman's use of a straw hat, that Tony Martin based his whole style on Richman's, that even the great Jolson sometimes imitated him. Harry Richman was probably the most imitated performer in America.
It was a great feeling to go in and see people imitate you. And then the audience knows that you're in the room is another big factor. Because they don't watch the imitator. They watch to see how I take it.
Yeah.
Well, a great amount of them are very disgusting. Because some they don't do an impersonation. They do
An impression.
a caricature.
I see.
It's a ridiculous thing, movements that I never dreamed of. You know, with your hand like that, and this, I say, and I never did those things.
Harry, you started out really by imitating another entertainer, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I imitated what was my idol, Al Jolson. He was then, when I was a little boy. He is now, although he's passed away, he will be.
How I love you, my dear old Swanee. California, here I come, right back where I started from. Open up that golden gate, California, here I come.
So much so that I put on that dirty grease paint, that black, with a wig and cork, and it would be coming out of my nose and my ears, and I could only wear a suit or a shirt once because I didn't know how to do it. And I would go out in front of the audience, and with the white gloves and the flowing tie, and I say, ladies and gentlemen, you ain't heard nothing yet, Joe. And the manager would come back and say, here's your money, you're through. And I said, what happened? There was a big hit. Not with me, it wasn't. If we want Jolson, we'll get him. And that's what started Richman.
Hey, hey, I found a horse you couldn't go wrong. And then you happen along. Oh, boy, I'm lucky. I'll swear I'm lucky. This is my lucky day.
And then I worked around and worked in a little thing like this for numbers I put them on the wrist for a Broadway number. And then when Jimmy McHugh wrote Sunny Side of the Street, I did it in this with a cane, and this with a cane actually. And then in 1926, I wrote a song called, somebody promoted it, Walking My Baby Back Home, and I introduced that in Palace Theater.
Walking my baby back home. I love the things you tell me. I love the things you say. Why, I could fight for someone exactly like you. Thank your father, thank your mother, thank them both for meeting up with one another. Then from a jail came the way of the down.
Way back before the big time, he'd played in Butte, Montana, and fallen in love with the governor's daughter.
Well, I'm sorry you brought that up, because he found out 2 weeks later that we were going together, and for a girl to be going with a ham entertainer in the back room of a downtown eating place,
Yeah.
there was nothing could be lower for a governor's daughter.
There was something about leaving town then, wasn't it?
It wasn't something. He sent the chief of police over, and he gave me exactly 48 hours to get out of the state, not the city. If then he would only be the mayor.
Yeah.
But being the governor, he gave me 2 days to leave the state.
There's been a whole lot of trouble with ladies in your life, hasn't there?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Been a whole lot of ladies, at least, huh?
The trouble, as great and as massive and as tremendous as it was worth it.
Is that so?
Yes. As expensive as it was. And believe me, it runs into the millions.
I think we figured it out, $13 million, and most of it on girls. Except for 1 million gambling and 1 million on golf.
That's about it.
To cry a bit, life begins when Gilbert wins and you're in love.
How many times were you married? You were married 3 times.
3. That isn't bad.
How many times were you
Call me Manville. What is it, 18?
How many times were you unmarried?
Well, I must have gotten, at least 4,000 or 5,000 divorces. And then there might have been 2,000 or 3,000 annulments.
Weren't you sued?
Separations were every day.
I see.
Not legal,
Yeah.
mutual. Mutual separation. I like that. What else, Mr. Geeman?
And I was going to ask you about some of those days during the 20s, after you'd beat around the bushes and really established your style. I guess your first big break was becoming Mae West piano player, wasn't it?
Yes, it wasn't the first real break. It was, let's say it was one that started to draw a little attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it that way.
Because you did a single with her as well as accompanying her.
Yes. I had to, when Mae went in to make changes, then I had to entertain.
Mm-hmm. Now, didn't you tell me also once that her lawyer had warned you, or her manager, never to have anything romantic to do with her?
Yes, that was Jim
Timoney.
Timoney. That's
And
correct.
it went on for a whole year and a half.
A year and a half.
And didn't have anything whatever. Just
And we
never
had-
held her hand.
And we never went near her until we got to Hartford, Connecticut. And one evening I just innocently went out with her, and that was the end of the act.
The next day the act broke up.
That was the end of the act. And I never saw Mae West for 14 years after that.
But wasn't it just last year that the Friars gave you that testimonial and she came into the
The
room?
greatest thrill in my life. They had 600 men jammed in this room, Stagg, and Bob Hope, and everybody you can think of, with the greatest songwriters, Jimmy McHugh, everybody, Sammy Kahn, and the biggest, they were there.
Yeah.
Because I had been introducing their songs over the past many, many years. And in the midst of this affair, unannounced, out walked Mae West with the most magnificent white sequins gown, evening gown, with his big, beautiful blonde wig. And when she came out on that floor and looked at that audience and said, "This is what I've always dreamed of, wall-to-wall men."
Harry Richman's early success as a radio singer led to a nightclub act, and before long to his own place, the Club Richman in Manhattan. He starred in George White's Scandals and Ziegfield's Follies, wrote and sang one hit song after another. He made a couple of Hollywood movies, Puttin' on the Ritz and The Music Goes Round and Round, and wowed him at the Palladium in London. He lingered long enough in Dublin to discover a youngster named Maureen Fitzsimmons, and we know her as Maureen O'Hara. He found himself a pretty fair co-star one time, too.
Then I invested $50,000 in the show called Say When. That was 50% of the show. And I searched all over New York for somebody to co-star with me. I needed a man because there was 2 boys that go to Europe and fall in love with 2 society girls. Mm-hmm. And these 2 boys are ham actors. So I finally found a